All right, let's get to the roster. You got your cheat sheet with you. There's a lot
No,
of new
I,
names.
I
There's a lot of
know.
new
I know.
faces.
I need a little help here sometimes.
I've got mine ready. Quarterback Desmond Ritter is swan song, the final hurrah for Dez. You've got Evan Prater behind him. You've got Brady Lichtenberg coming in.
Which is the quarterback position, I think, is going to be the most unique position for the next. It always is, but I mean, just at the roster management at the quarterback position, losing two guys that I think had a lot of potential. Obviously, Ben Bryant had been a 3.5-year guy, so when you do that, your numbers go really dwindle quick. So to kind of come in with those three guys that you know about. You still got to bring in some other arms and some other things that you got to be able to do. Now all of a sudden you got to try the progression of developing in a lot of ways. We know Desmond Ritter still got ceiling to continue to grow to. He knows, and we know what he could be, in the long run after leaving here, which is what gives him a lot of work and a lot of pressure to, which he loves pressure and competition. Yeah. But the ability to kind of really work with Evan and really see what Brady's got. Is going to be a big deal for us through this entire fall camp.
Do you notice any difference in Dez working with Jordan Palmer, going to the Manning Passing Academy? Have you seen?
Well, you're trying to lead me into something since I don't know if you don't know this, but in college football, you can't work with a guy and with the football in his hand. So how would I know anything about how that?
I'm talking off the field, mentally.
Yeah, I do. I think that we're always looking for things for Dez to challenge him with because he is such a high achiever. He's gone through so many different things that he's best when he's kind of challenged and when he's in some type of competition. So Jordan, kind of that whole thing, the Manning passing camp, all that, I think has just put a little bit more onto his plate, which is a mature guy that can handle it. So I believe those things are, you see a little bit of a difference in him, and not that he didn't have the confidence and all that, but that outside influence, I think, can give a little bit something else, especially at that position.
The position everybody's going to be talking about throughout fall camp and then through the start of the season, offensive line. You lose your bookend tackles. Your work through spring, and unfortunately, John Williams is smarter than all of us, so he missed some time because he's in aerospace engineering classes. But through the spring and into the summer, you've messed with some things, and John Williams and Dylan O'Quinn and the transfer James Tunstall and others.
Cam
Jones working to get into that.
I would say right now going into, obviously that's the two spots, losing Hudson and Harp. I think, so those are the glaring things right away. I don't know that we've gone into a fall where we said we've got as much depth right now because interiorly, I think we've got a lot of depth. And really, with those four guys on the outside, I think, and they're young, that we've got a lot of depth. We just don't have as much experience. So kind of find that configuration. Dylan O'Quinn started all year at guard. He has the athletic ability to move himself out to tackle. So that's a transition that we're still experimenting with. And took Metz and moved him into guard. I know you'll get into the interior positions, but the outside spots, I still think, camp's going to be a really big time for them. And the great thing is for those guys, they're going to be challenged.
Good luck.
And that's what I mean, like on an everyday basis. And it's not just Majay, because we all know how Majay is, but that 8 guys deep of the defensive line, the Curtis Brookses and the Malik Vans and the Jawan, they're going to be challenged every day. So it's not just, hey, who's got the most ability? It's who can over the next 20-some days be able to handle the emotions of the ups and the downs and the wins and the losses, because you're not going to win every time in a game and in a season. So I think we'll be challenged a lot, and we'll find out a lot.
No leaders in the clubhouse there. Everybody goes blank slate to higher ground, or?
Yeah, well, I think that the two guys coming back with Dylan and John, Dylan was a starter at guard, and you move him out, so you're moving him out to be a starter. So you'd originally think that he's going to get the best opportunity. And then John, just because James, there's still some things pending with him. So, right now, those guys would be the ones that would line up to start with, but the great thing is there's going to be a lot of competition.
Inside, Jake Renfro was maybe the most pleasant surprise on the entire roster last year. I called it on his signing day press conference.
But we don't need to go back to that one, huh?
No, we don't. Go watch the video.
We'll give you that one.
But he was a great surprise. You had Dylan. Obviously, Vinny McConnell's back. You've got Jeremy Cooper. You've got Woodside. You've got Metz. You've got a lot of options. Mendiola. I mean, there's a lot of guys that can fill in for you there at guard.
Gerhardt, but we probably sliding him into, be a center as well.
Okay.
And, it's not the easiest thing as a kid who's, been playing guard and moving into center, knowing that, Jake's a pretty darn good player for us too. But, I think any of those three positions got to have a chance, if something happens, that we could slide into play center too.
You haven't had Landon in the barn snapping balls all summer?
Well, yeah, but I think that the great thing is where we are is all those young kids with a lot of opportunities. You're in a good position that, there's a lot of experience that can be gained from those guys and the roles that they're going to have. And, that's what makes you great. I mean, you got to go through some of those tough times. And, for us right now, hopefully those young kids will have a chance to go through those tough times and grow and bond together too. So, but we don't know. I mean, there's a lot of interchangeable parts inside, and we'll just have to see how they best fit.
True freshman center, that just doesn't happen.
No,
right?
That's where Jake was just mature beyond his years, and obviously as strong and as big physically as he was coming in, really gave him a bonus. And then, like we said, last year was going to be the year of the teammate, and things kind of happened, and he had to be thrust into the position, and by God, he was ready.
Running back. You've lost Mike Warren, and then you lost Jared Dokes, both, Mike declaring for the draft, Jared exhausting his eligibility, or declaring for the draft, I guess, whatever. Jerome Ford didn't come here from Alabama to sit, right? And we've seen home run ability. And
he didn't come here just to run down on kickoff, which he did an incredible job of last year as well.
Which a lot of those guys that transfer from situations like that aren't team guys like that, right? Yep. So he proved his worth last year. Is he ready to be a number one?
I do believe so. And he'll, how he handles it will be a big deal. And don't get me wrong, he has come a long way. And I don't mean he needed to come a long way, just meaning grasping the team concept and the way we do things. I mean, to run down on kickoff and be as good at it and as excited about it as he was last year, knowing that that's not the reason he came. He's shown us a lot of maturity. We know he's got the ability. We saw what he did in the bowl game with the small opportunities that he actually had. But I still think, like a guy that can be a really good player for us, his ability to grow and the ceiling he's got puts a little bit more on his plate to say, okay, don't just be satisfied with maybe being in that position. You've got goals and dreams to do something greater than that.
Is one of the biggest battles at camp who's number two behind him, because you've got Monty, you've got Ethan Wright, Miles Montgomery showing up, Charles McClellan coming back.
I think we got a good, not say surprise, but to see what Charles did here in the summer, when we got all the monitors and all the things on him, you saw.
He might be an alien.
Yeah, you saw something kind of click with the guy, and the confidence start to come back when they start putting those things on him, and he's up there in the top 2, 3, 4 guys in the team of speed, which we've come a long way with a lot of guys that can run. So you're hoping and believing that Chuck is going to be back to where he was last year and even the year before. And he was one of those, not saying he was just a change of pace guy, but for what we had back with Mike and Jared, he was quite a change of pace for us. And I still think and believe he could be that for us today.
So he's number two?
There's a lot of guys that could be number two. we got 1As, 1Bs, 2As, 2Bs, so he's definitely in those mixes.
Ethan Wright intrigues
He's still on
me.
offense right now.
Well, Freeman's gone. He's out of here. So Tressel's trying to steal him now too?
I mean, everybody loves him. I think the strength coaches want him just to be a strength guy for him. They're saying, I think he could be done with football and he'd be a great strength coach. I mean, you just love him. He's got an infectious energy to him, the smile, whatever he does incredibly hard. So he'll be in a lot of positions and a lot of opportunities. Tailback probably first and foremost, but whether it's special teams, whether it's flexed out, I don't know. There's a lot of things he can do and will do.
He just was headed for safety with.
That would be on me now. It's not lying.
I know.
I would try to steal him at times too, but there's a lot of things. That's the great thing. So when there's a lot of things that they can do, it's just figuring out what's going to be the best place for him.
This time a year ago, we were talking about a wide receiver room that had been completely retooled. You got to be happy with how that reclamation project went, because it looks a lot better now. You Pierce on one side and potentially Tyler Scott or Jaden Thompson or Blue Smith opposite him, and Michael Young in the slot and can play outside, Trey Tucker. All of a sudden, instead of searching for names, you're almost making sure you don't leave out names.
I think that's a big part of it. And even to start last year, we started a little bit slower. Dez struggled a little bit, and we always kind of blame the quarterback. But the reality is, I still think we were trying to figure it out offensively at that position. We had some talent, but how they were going to come together, I think the emergence of Mike Young was really, really big for us. And I don't mean that Alec wasn't and things like that, but I think just a guy that helped really kind of solidify a lot of things, had a lot of experience. After that third game, I think you really kind of saw everybody in that from Dez, out to those wideouts really kind of come together. And you're right. Now we're in a position where, boy, there's you have to share the ball a little bit more, and find the ways to get some of those guys better and greater opportunities. There's a lot of speed, maybe not all the experience, but I mean, you got Pierce and you've got Michael, who have played a ton of football.
Yeah.
And then you take Trey Tucker, who's really played a lot of football for us as well, and Tyler Scott. Now you got some legitimate track speed guys that can take the top off of things. I think you're gonna see two freshmen that could at least be in the mix a little bit. Which isn't something you would say with this season coming into where we are with the guys coming back that you would think would be normal.
Malik Rainey, Drew Donnelly.
What's that?
Malik Rainey, Drew Donnelly.
No, not Drew Donnelly, and
Rainey's the corner. Will Pauling.
Will.
Oof.
Will, I'm
See,
sorry.
we knew we were going to.
Will was here in the spring.
Yeah, Will was here in the spring. Had the catch that ended the spring game.
And did a really, really good job. And that's where you're just, we've got a bunch of guys that have played in that slot position a little bit. But I think Will's going to provide something that even, those two guys.
He's got some wiggle.
He's got a bit more strength and stuff in the slot. And then Drew, I think just natural speed, can give us something. Now, 3 years ago, I'd say he would play for sure, whether he could catch or not, just to have some speed out there.
Right.
But with Tyler Scott and the rest, I mean, there's a lot of speed that's out there. But I think those guys could find a way that would help us.
Tight end, finally on offense. Josh has kind of thrust his way up there. Lenny has thrust his way up there.
And there's why even the wide receiver room is deep as we've gotten and as strong as it is. It's hard to keep those two tight ends off the field as well. Yeah. So it gives us really good balance. I mean, Josh has come a really long way, and I really believe that he could be one of those guys that has a really big breakout year. And whether he does or he doesn't, he's going to be really good for us. But I mean, having those opportunities takes it to the next level. And then Lenny is a guy that can do it all for us. And Lenny's the guy that could sometimes be the guy that's forgotten and mismatched a little bit more. So he could create a lot of things for us as well. So then after that, we've got a lot of work just to find out who can be the third and fourth guys between Noah Davis and Peyton and some young freshman kids and Shimon and Schmitz.
Yeah.
To just find out where we are, how we're going to play with those guys, and how many of them we can have on the football.